Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to Healing Conversations. I am your host, Miss Javo, and this is a space where we have honest conversations about healing, identity, relationships, emotional wellness, and the things we often carry silently. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to spend this time with me today. I want to start with something that happened recently. The other day, I was having a casual conversation with someone I'd just met, and we're talking about WhatsApp groups. We noticed something very interesting. In certain groups, women freely share their problems. My husband did this. I'm so stressed. People are disappointing. I don't know what to do anymore. And immediately, people respond. Messages come flooding in with responses like, same, I understand, men are like that. Life is hard. But then I started thinking about my own group. Because in my group, I often post things about healing, identity, emotions, self-worth, reflection, and growth. Questions like, what emotions have you been carrying lately? Or what belief about yourself are you struggling with? Or what wound might still be affecting your relationships? And very often, if not all of the time, there's silence, quiet, crickets. So we started wondering, why is that? One thought that came up was maybe people have become very comfortable in their discomfort. Or maybe we've just become so used to pain that it starts to feel normal. And that got me thinking, do people really love misery? Or is there something deeper happening here? So today, that's what we're going to unpack. You see, whereas pain creates an immediate connection between people, healing requires individual movement. I want you to think about this. Pain creates instant connection. Someone says, my heart is broken. And immediately someone else responds, mine too. And another, I know that feeling. And yet another, I totally understand. Pain has a way of gathering people because suffering is something almost all of us understand and have experienced. But healing asks for movement. Healing asks, now what? Healing requires us to look beyond the pain and see what we need to do to move beyond it. And this is where things usually become uncomfortable because now we're no longer simply identifying the wound, the pain. We're asking, how do I move forward? And movement can be terrifying. Let's look at the story in the book of John, where Jesus encounters a man who had been unable to walk for 38 years. 38 years. 3 decades plus 8 years. Think about that. 38 years of routine. 38 years of dependency. 38 years of living in one reality. And then Jesus comes and he tells this guy, rise up, take your mat, and walk. Notice he didn't say, stay there and think about walking. He invited movement. You see, Jesus wasn't only talking about physical healing, because healing changes everything. And sometimes that's the scary part, because healing means new responsibilities. It means a different identity, a totally different identity. It means leaving behind what you've known. Take my example, for instance. For years, I used to think that only men who wanted me sexually were attracted to me. This was based on the evidence that I got from the kind of men who would approach me. Until one day, the female pastor at my home church said something while preaching. She said, and I paraphrase, if you've always been hurt in relationships and you always feel like you're the victim, you need to ask yourself why. How come you are the one who's always heartbroken? It means you are the problem because you are the common denominator in these situations. And mind you, she didn't stutter, nor was she suggesting. She said it very matter-of-factly. Boy, was that message hard to take. I remember initially I was very, very upset with her and I felt like she was so insensitive. I thought to myself, does she know what these men have done to me? Does she know what I've been through at the hands of these men, these cruel, cruel men? But as the pattern kept repeating itself and I got really tired of it, I began to very reluctantly think about what she had said. And eventually, after a long period of time, I began to look deep inside myself and wonder, might there be something in me that is actually attracting these men? Maybe it is me who has something wrong with me. And that's when I realized that the truth was deep down, really deep down, I did believe that all I was good for was sex. And this was a core belief that had been ingrained into my brain after I was sexually abused, which I hadn't yet dealt with. And so I was attracting what I believed I was. After experiencing the trauma, my brain got rewired to the position of all I'm good for is sex. And so I had to now start rewiring my brain and stop believing that. After working on rewiring my brain, on renewing my mind and beginning to believe that I wasn't only good for sex, I finally started noticing that there were actually men, even in the past, who had been interested in me in a genuine way, but I couldn't see them because all I was able to see at that point was men who were interested in me for sex. But now that I had rewired my brain, I was able to see these are the men who were interested in me genuinely. We always experience life from a place of what we believe about ourselves. So today, I'd like you to ask yourself this. What belief about yourself keeps attracting those people or circumstances into your life? Those circumstances or people that you don't want, that are harmful or that are not aligned with where you want to go. What beliefs about yourself keeps attracting those things into your life and those people? When we ask ourselves this, we're not talking about what happened anymore. Now we're talking about the possibility that healing may require something from us. Not blame, not shame, but participation and transition. And this brings us to another uncomfortable truth. Sometimes pain becomes so familiar, and familiar things usually feel safe. But you see, the Bible reminds us not to be conformed to the pattern of this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Now, transformation sounds beautiful and exciting until we're actually living through it. You see, transformation means leaving something behind. And most times what we're leaving behind isn't just pain. Most times we're leaving behind familiarity. Let's think about the Israelites. God delivers them from slavery. He parted the sea, performed miracles, provided food, led them out of Egypt. These were huge miracles. Each and every one of them so big it blew their minds. The sea parting and food being provided from heaven. And yet they repeatedly wanted to go back to slavery, back to Egypt. Not because slavery was good, but because slavery was familiar. Freedom was unfamiliar. Freedom required trust. Freedom required uncertainty. Freedom required growth. Sometimes we do the same thing emotionally. We stay in relationships where we're constantly overlooked. We keep accepting crumbs. We keep silencing ourselves. We keep abandoning our needs. Not because it feels good, but because somewhere inside us, it feels known. And what is known can feel safer than what is unknown. I remember hearing someone say, people don't always choose what's healthy. Sometimes they choose what's familiar. That stayed with me. Because then I realized that many of us are not fighting happiness. We're not fighting against happiness. We're fighting unfamiliarity. We're fighting the unknown. Because the truth is that most times it's easier to talk about other people than it is to talk about ourselves. Let's be honest, complaining feels safer than reflection because complaining usually focuses on my boss, my husband, my childhood, my wife, people. But reflection asks, was it me? What am I believing? What am I tolerating? What am I afraid of? What patterns keep repeating? And suddenly, things become deeply personal. Scripture says, search me, O God, and know my heart. This is Psalm 139, verses 28 and 23 and 24, That is a brave prayer. David didn't say, search everybody else. He said, search me. Self-awareness can feel very vulnerable because sometimes we discover things we'd rather not see. Imagine someone saying, people always leave me. But then after gentle conversation, they realize that they always push people away before they get too close because they're afraid of abandonment. That realization can feel painful. And it usually does. Not because they are a bad person, but because now they're face to face with something deeper. So, maybe that's why my group becomes quiet. Because reflective questions don't always create immediate responses. Sometimes they create internal responses. And maybe silence doesn't always mean resistance. This made me change my thinking. Because maybe silence isn't rejection. Rejection of what I'm offering. Maybe silence isn't disinterest. Maybe silence isn't nobody cares. Maybe people are processing. Maybe someone read the message and sat there thinking, wow, I think that's me. Maybe someone cried. Maybe someone took a screenshot. Maybe someone opened wounds. They didn't realize they were still there. Maybe someone didn't know how to put their feelings into words. Scripture says of Mary, the mother of Jesus, she treasured all these things and pondered them in her heart. She didn't immediately speak. She reflected. She processed. She sat with it. Sometimes deep conversations create quiet rooms. Not because nothing is happening, but exactly because something is happening. So I guess this is an encouragement to me and anyone else who's in these spaces of bringing healing to others. Don't give up if there's silence. Maybe the silence is the evidence that there's work going on in the background. Now I want us to sit with some questions. Don't rush through them. If you're journaling, which I highly encourage you to, write them down. The first question is, am I only comfortable talking about pain, or am I also willing to engage in my healing? The second question is, what familiar discomfort have I mistaken for safety? I know I've been engaging with this question lately. It can be uncomfortable, but it is freeing. The third question is, what truth about myself have I been avoiding? And the fourth question, where in my life is God inviting me to get up and walk? Healing is beautiful, but the truth is that healing is also disruptive because healing changes identities, healing changes relationships, healing changes patterns, healing changes the stories we've told ourselves. So maybe the question me and my new acquaintance should have been engaging in was not, do people love misery? But instead, a better question would have been, are people willing to choose healing? Even when healing feels unfamiliar. Because there comes a time, a point where familiar pain starts costing more than change. And maybe that point is now. I hope this episode has spoken to you. Share it with someone who may need it. And I would love to hear from you. What familiar discomfort have you mistaken for safety? This has been Healing Conversations with me, Javo. Join me on the next episode. And here's a quick reminder before I go. Healing isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were before pain convinced you that you had to live disconnected from your true self. So until next time, keep protecting your heart, honoring your healing, and showing up for yourself one brave step at a time. Take care.